Alright, what's up everyone? Today, I'm going to be discussing the differences between inspired Fourplay and inspired Skye. Alright, so first things first, grab my phone because I have no idea what I'm talking about. One thing I want to get out of the way is this is not a complete inspired Fourplay bike. This didn't come as a complete bike. This started as a completely different bike. It's not the same as the new Fourplays. This is the 2013 frame and fork, but I'll go over the differences between the two so you can still get a good comparison between the two. So, as you know, there's a pretty decent price point between this bike and this bike. Starting off, they're both blue. Obviously that means that they're superior to others. So the first thing I'll go over is geometry. This version, the 2013, wheelbase is 1,025 millimeters. Back then in 2013, that was actually relatively short compared to my old frame that was an adamant frame. The new Fourplay bikes that are out right now, the black one, they have a much shorter wheelbase than the older model that I currently have. They now have a wheelbase of, I think it's around like 990 millimeters or something like that. It's under 1,000. That is going to make the bike a lot easier to 360 and pretty much just every spinning trick. Moving on to the Skye, the model that was used in the Imagine It video that Danny used. This wheelbase is 975 millimeters, I think. Is it? They don't have it listed on their website anymore, but I'm pretty sure this thing was 975. The new one is like 967, or to be honest, I don't know. You can look and you can comment what exactly it is, but it's quite short, shorter than the Fourplays. So obviously, being shorter, the Skye is gonna be yet even easier to maneuver. As far as maneuverability, the Skye is somewhat superior, but the new Fourplay bikes, being that they're quite a bit shorter than the older Fourplays, are really catching up as far as maneuverability. They're pretty similar. All-out maneuverability goes to the Skye. So components-wise, the Fourplay does differ from the Skye with quite a few components. The older model Fourplays did come with the inspired team rims. I don't have the inspired team rims on here. These are still my original rims that I was running. These are Echo rims. The Skye came with these rims, the Atom Lab Pimp Light rims. So just recently, after Tardy Bikes having problems keeping the Atom Labs in stock, they decided to switch to rims that Spank makes. What they were trying to do is they tried to find a brand that would be able to have the supply and demand that they wanted to be able to produce more bikes with the rims and not having the rims be out of stock all the time. So you'll see some of the differences like in the frames, like some of the welds are different. The head tube on the inspired Skye is quite a bit thicker than the Fourplay is, so whether or not that really adds usable strength, who knows. And then it has bolt-through axles, so that means that the actual hub has an entire, pretty much the axle is hollow, but it's really thick and it slides directly through there and threads in. It makes everything really stiff. This uses vertical dropouts, so it has separate bolts that you thread into the hub, and the hub is threaded. So you don't really get as much, you get a lot more flex with that. But this one definitely feels a little bit more locked in. So the new inspired Skye comes with the Magura MT7 brakes. And so far I actually love them. These are probably my favorite brakes I've ever used in my entire life of riding these bikes. They are an optional upgrade on the Fourplay, but the stock brakes that come on them, Hope makes them, and I've never tried them, so I couldn't tell you whether or not they're any good. I don't really know, to be honest. I've heard that they're pretty much equivalent to the Shimano Saint brakes, the M820s or M810s. Like, they're relatively similar. I have the M820s in the front. They do stop really good, but compared to the Magura brakes that they have as an upgrade, they're definitely not as superior to those. These things are monsters. They stop on a dime. They give you so much confidence when you're riding. It's pretty crazy. It's a really nice feeling. The other optional upgrade that you can do is cranks. I did the optional upgrade. It's Hope cranks with an upgraded bottom bracket, I believe. It's a whole assembly. On here I have Trial Tech cranks. These are like real trials cranks. But there's an optional upgrade for the Fourplay to have the Hope cranks. Whether or not they're worth it pretty much comes down to how much weight you're trying to save. Whether or not they're stronger, again, it's just like the head tube. Is it really usable strength? I don't really think so. The Hope cranks are a good amount lighter than the stock cranks that are going to come on your bike, whether it's the Skye or the Fourplay. Again, to weight, the Fourplay is actually a little bit lighter than the Skye is. That's because the Skye is built a little bit stronger than the Fourplay in the ways of pretty much thickness of everything. So that's why I went with the Hope cranks to try to even it out, to pretty much try to get it as light as a stock Fourplay would be. Let's see what else there is to talk about. Main difference, subtle differences. We'll talk about how they feel. That's probably a really important fact that you'd like to know. After getting on this bike, if you've ever ridden a BMX bike, after riding your trials bike, you feel like you're about to do a backflip off of the back of your bike when you lift the front end. It's a similar feeling when you get on the Skye, believe it or not. It's kind of a BMX-y feel where it's so short, when you lean back, the front end will definitely come off the ground pretty easily. On the older Fourplays, it wasn't really like that. You really did have to try a little bit. When I first got this bike, before I got this frame with a really long stem, it was almost impossible to lift up that front end. Tires. The Fourplay will come with Holy Rollers. The Skye will come with Danny McCaskill's signature Continental tires. Now, I've run Holy Rollers for a little while now, and I've gotten to the point where I almost continuously had the same problem with the Holy Rollers, usually with the back tire, and because of this, I've actually changed the Continental in the back, which I actually prefer, which I'll get into in a second. Problem with the Holy Rollers is they're folding tires. So the side, there's something in my eye. The sidewalls are actually really thin, and the problem with that, especially with the rear tire, being that you're jumping on the rear tire a lot, there's a lot of strain on the rear tire. They'll start tearing and ripping, and to the point where your tube will start poking out of it and pretty much just opening up the hole to where your entire tire just blows out. I decided, okay, let me try out Danny's tires, which are probably twice the price of the Holy Rollers. So I just tried it in the rear first. I didn't mess with the front because I hadn't had the problem with the front. And the Holy Rollers are a little bit lighter than the Continental tires. So I'm actually liking this combo. These in the rear and then the Holy Rollers in the front. It works great. On the Skye, it comes with the Continental tires. I actually prefer the Continental tires. They're a little bit heavier, and that's rotating weight, but you don't necessarily feel it. They feel really locked in because the sidewalls are so thick, they feel a little bit more firm, and the grip on them, I found, does last a little bit longer than the Holy Rollers. The Holy Rollers do wear down a little bit quicker, not that much quicker though, and I do like the tread on them. The tread on them is pretty tready when you're hopping on rails and things like that. It gives you a lot of confidence. What I found what Inspired is doing, you'll kind of get the hint that this is what Inspired has been doing. The Fourplays are usually a year behind the Skye. The Skye is Danny's bike, and it has the newest geometry, and once that becomes the old model and he gets a new bike, the new Fourplay comes out, and that Fourplay usually has the geometry of the old Skye. See, this is already the old Skye, and now the new Fourplays are having similar geometry to this one, and now the new Skye has different geometry from this one, so expect the Fourplays coming out next year to have similar geometry to that one. So that's pretty much what Inspired's doing from what I've gathered, looking all the dimensions on their website and seeing how they're doing it. You can gauge from there when you should buy, and knowing in your mind, okay, this bike's going to have the same geometry next year as this bike will the previous year. The Fourplay is a great bike. It's not as personalized, I guess, as Danny's bike is. You may think that this bike, this geometry must be better than the last geometry, but a lot of it has to do with what Danny wants at that point. If you look at his videos, in the Imagine It video, he chose this geometry specifically for the stunts he was doing. The bottom bracket on this version of the Skye is quite low, positive 10 millimeter bottom bracket, and on his new bike, the black one that just came out, the bottom bracket height is a little bit higher. But if you notice, the difference between the videos is one is more park oriented, where he's doing flips and spins off ramps, and his newest video is a lot more trials. And trials bikes tend to have higher bottom brackets because you have more clearance over rocks and things. So obviously Danny knows this and wanted to get into a little bit more the trials aspect, so decided, okay, I'm going to have this geometry on my new bike. So it's pretty much depends on what Danny is doing with his bike, decides on what geometry it has. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's better. The only issue I did have that you have to keep in mind, that you wouldn't necessarily think, is what shoe size you are, because the front tire is actually awfully close to the pedal and the tip of your shoe. When you're turning the front wheel, it will hit your foot if it's too far forward or if your shoes are too big. When I first got this bike, I was wearing 11.5 shoes, and those shoes were a little bit too big for me. I wore them on the first ride, and I did my first 360 exit, and I didn't land it because my foot caught the front wheel and totally messed me up. And at that point I was like, wow, do I have to totally rethink my footing position? Do I have to start keeping my feet further back? But no, you don't want to do that. You want to ride where you're comfortable. So I switched to 10.5 size shoes. Now these are US sizes, so wherever you live would depend on what shoe size you are. So now I'm wearing 10.5 shoes. And I think the limit is probably size 11 shoes, to where your foot won't hit. 11s might hit a little bit. I still have problems hitting them occasionally with the 10.5 shoes when I'm turning, doing tricks on the front wheel or other tricks. So I found that was a problem, being that these bikes are so much shorter, the front end being further in, your foot is going to hit depending on how big your shoe is. So don't forget to like and comment and subscribe to this channel. There's more videos to come, more how-tos, more just other videos of just biking in general. I also like doing RC videos as my other hobby. I do RC airplanes, RC cars. I might have a couple videos regarding that, and pretty much whatever else I do in my lifetime, I'll put on YouTube if it's entertaining. Oh my god! Crisscross applesauce! Oh.
This hit is Givenchy, $900 jeans, homie. All these girls be raunchy, like let me see your peen, homie. She tryna cause a scene, but I'm in Paris with my team, walking slow like I'm on lean. Damn, my nigga jewelry looks so clean. I occasionally bought in Lambin.